This is going to be interesting. I don't know if I'm going to get away without having to have this cat on my lap. I'm cat sitting, and these cats, I have a cat of my own, and I have to keep them away from each other, and it's just this particular one, they're old, and this particular one starts crying really loud. She can't hear very well, but she gets so demanding, and I find my edges, my sharp edges, where as much as I love animals, and I especially love cats, but this cat tries actually both of them for different reasons. They're very demanding. They're like dogs. My cat is chill, and she really very rarely gets pushy with me. So, but I only have a little bit of time to do a recording, and I know that I'm going to be, I need to have, this cat needs some attention. So I'm going to try to give the cat, actually her name is Spaghetti, but her nickname is Pose. Don't ask me why. But anyway, I haven't done a video for a little while because I've been allowing myself to sink into a receptive mode. I've been doing a lot of listening and learning a lot, and also going through things in life that have been at times demanding. And really, I want to say, you know, the whole reason I'm doing this series of recordings is to share and track the progress that I make on my journey. And it is in part because I want to represent what it looks like when you start to unfold, not start to, because I've been doing it for a long time, but what might it look like when you start activating your mission, when you start activating your deeper desires, and in particular when those, which they most often are, related to humanity. And I've always said I want to demystify it. We're all very different. We have different approaches to things. And so it would be errant to assume that what process somebody goes through, we're all going to go through. However, I do feel that most often we see the results of the growth, but we aren't taken along the journey of the growth. We see when someone comes out with a book, or, you know, they come on the scene ready to go, but we don't see all what went on behind the curtain. And that's what I'm attempting to show here, knowing that I have a very small number of people that are watching these videos right now, but it could be that someday it will be more interesting or more pertinent to go back over the flow and look at the process that I went through. Because, for example, as we start to activate our inner growth, and even as we start stepping out into a path, it seems to be an ebb and flow. And it feels natural and normal. And when I consult with my guides, I am given that. They discourage me from being too anxious or pushing in any way, and rather would encourage a relaxed attitude to one that is, you know, rushing into something. So unfolding is just that. And I think that's one of the reasons that became the word to use. Because even if you say unwrapping, that feels like you could be tearing open a package, blossoming, flowering. There's all these things that you're doing, but unfolding feels like it's a deliberate succinct thing. When you're going to unfold something, you open this one, you open that one, you go through it methodically. And so for me, and my growth has always been like this. I make headway in a self-awareness direction. And then life gets big and I step aside from my growth path and I delve into the here and now of this human existence. And sometimes it can be very consuming. And I learn as much as I can while I go through various processes of emotional things. And then when the time is right, I come back to my journey. And I'm saying it as though there's two things going on, but they really aren't, because they are important. Each part is important. And I guess that's what I want to say. Part of the reason not to push a thing is because it needs all of the components along the way. So every time I step aside, there are things that happen in my life that actually shift some of what I may have been thinking prior to the experiences in my life that I've gone through. And so, and that's the way it's been on this journey. In these last few months, I have been doing my morning toning, my toning for my chakras. I don't do it every single day. I do it most days. And I have been doing it most days consistently since I started. So that I actually have anchored pretty well. And yet there are days when I oversleep, or many times where I wake up. Now, I'm under the impression I should be doing it for an hour, 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Sometimes I wake up at 5 o'clock and I realize, it's time. Maybe my alarm went off. Sometimes I wake up before my alarm and I think I've got to go do my meditation. And I don't. And I ask myself why. And I don't get an answer. I've even asked for help from my guides. Can you help me with this? Because I feel as though it's not their place to interfere with we all have free will, so they can't interfere with that. But in a way, and that's, if I wake up in the morning and I feel like not doing my meditation yet, when I don't do it, usually what happens is I don't come down until, 1:15 or 5:30, I get less of a meditation in. So I'm talking about when I'm actually aware and I could get up and do it, and I either, I just lay around and read or something, I just avoid. Or other times I might fall back asleep and then wake up and still have time to meditate. Other times I wake up, I have no time. And I believe that the thing behind that, it is what I'm doing in order to explore the concepts of free will, for one thing, understanding that I can't expect my guides to do anything other than potentially help me wake up in the morning. Okay, they can do that, and they do sometimes. Sometimes I just spontaneously all of a sudden wake up, and then I realize, you can get an urging like that, but they cannot make me do, even if I say I've tried it, even if I say it's my free will. I'm saying right now that my free will is that I get up tomorrow morning and that I meditate for the whole hour. Could you please help me? No. They can wake me up, but they cannot help me with that, because that is about my free will. And it is about what I set in place for me. And therefore I look at that and say, okay, why am I doing it then? Well, I'm learning not only about that aspect of free will, but I'm also learning, I'm giving myself opportunities to practice detachment from judgment, because I want to get mad at myself. I want to be hard on myself for missing it and beat myself up, and I can't allow myself to do that. Like I can allow myself to do that, but I guess what I'm saying is, for my growth, I am practicing not getting angry or disappointed in myself, and just saying, you know what? Okay, I didn't do it today for whatever reason. Another part about it that I'm learning is that there could be other things that I need that I'm not aware of. So maybe if I fall back asleep, or maybe if I'm lost in reverie, there are other things that I may also need to be focusing on. There was something else, but I know I'm really tired right now, so I don't know how clear that's all going to be. It's like 4:45 in the afternoon, and this is not my shining time. Morning is more my time. But I didn't get to this until now. So, but what I want to say is that the ebb and flow is part of the process. And I guess that's the other thing I'm working with. Understanding that the goal isn't necessarily to run headlong forward. It's to take your time, to be considered, continue to look around and see what's happening around you. If what's happening around me is a lack of motivation to do something, then I can look at that and say, well, what is that about? Is it about anything, or is it that I just need more downtime? But I never give up the journey, so I continue to move forward on the journey. And I've often wondered, I remember, gosh, it had to be probably 40 years ago, in my pre-waking up to myself days, just at the very beginning of when I started to wake up to myself, was when Shirley MacLaine's book came out. So those of us, anyone who's in my generation, might remember that. It was it was a big deal. It was controversial. She came out with this very spiritual stuff that she talked about. And Out on a Limb was the name of the book. And it was profound for me. And she at the time was turning 50. And I at the time was turning 40. And no, 30. I was going to say it was longer ago than that. I was turning 30. Because that was like 30 years ago. So what she was talking about, maybe this is part of what informs what I'm doing right now. She wrote this story, and it talked all about this experience, these experiences she's had, and this awakening she went through. And she talked about how she would take a bath and put a crystal in the bath. She talked about some of the practices she did, but she never talked about the downside. And I'm very process oriented. Even in my work, when I was working as a business analyst, it came from this. I always have this urge to say, like, if I'm going to do a how-to, it's really important to me to include what to do if this happens, if that happens. I'm very meticulous about it, because too often people are thinking only of the right steps, and they're not giving you the solutions to some of the problems you might encounter if you take a wrong turn. I hope that's not sounding too fuzzy, but Shirley MacLaine, I read that book and I thought it was so cool and everything, but I wondered, does she wake up like that every day? Is she tuned in every day when she wakes up, or does she struggle? Because I've always sometimes struggled. I get these great ideas and these bursts of energy and this motivation, and then it kind of fizzles out for a while. And sometimes when it flares back up, it's got a different color now. It's a different look. So I had an opportunity to go to the Oprah Winfrey show when Shirley MacLaine was on. That was the one time I got to go to that show. And I put in to ask her a question. I really wanted to go and see her on that show because I wanted to ask her that question. And I submitted that question, but it wasn't one of the questions that got chosen or answered. And I was so disappointed because that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know, do you have bad days? Do you struggle? Because it seemed always like people become self-actualized, and then, you know, all these people that are teachers and speakers and presenters, you only see them at their best. It's like social media. You can curate your life, and so you can just create what you want everyone to see. But that's not helpful from a growth perspective because it doesn't show people a path. And so I have always been, it's kind of cool for me to even be saying all this right now because I hadn't thought about that until this moment. I hadn't even put that together, that whole thing from way back in the day. But that is actually, that informs what I'm doing right now, literally. That I've always have this urge, I want to be real. I want to expand and grow, but I want to do it from ground zero in the open. I don't want to create a facade. I don't know if I said this in these recordings yet, but there was a time when I was at a retreat, a weekend retreat. And I am a person who finds it easy to go into a soulful place. I'm a dreamer. I always have been. I can tune if I choose to. And when I'm in the right environment, like a spiritual oriented event or workshop, I can go right there. And I can become so attuned to my environment. And what I know about myself is that I can have a radiance, especially when I'm in that zone. We all do, but what I'm saying is I go there sometimes relatively easily, and so it comes up periodically. And I always say to people, you could put all your time and effort and money into appearances because you think that's what attracts people, or that's what makes you attractive, but it isn't. It's your radiance. It's what you radiate. And when we are radiating, we are beautiful, every one of us. Well, from that zone, I'm in that radiant place, and I'm at this workshop, and I'm standing in a stream where a bunch of us were, and I was just standing there, and I had a moment, and I was like, oh, it was like I felt the water, I felt the air around me, the vibration of the people that I was there in this workshop with, the birds, the sky, everything was just so beautiful. And I'm standing there like, you know, in glory. And someone comes up to me and says, and looked at me very open heart, but with what they said was something along the lines of, you're so, whatever they said, it was like they were acknowledging my presence as though it was amazing, as though it was bigger than life. And I felt in that, this makes me want to cry, but what I felt in that was their self-judgment, their comparison, their seeing me as better than them. And I rejected it. What I did is, because this is where my heart is, from that very beautiful space that I was in. I did not leave that space. I stayed in that space. It was a very beautiful, soulful space. And I just turned and I looked at her and I smiled at her and I said, "You should see me when I'm yelling at my kids." And she was taken aback, but I know that people have different opinions. I have a very well-respected teacher of mine who would say, let them love you, let them adore you, like give them that space if that's where they want to be. But I am hell-bent on the emancipation of humanity's souls, if that's a thing, right? I want people to awaken to their own wisdom and beauty. And I want people, if someone sees me in that space, it would be my dream that what they would see, what they would receive would be, I can be like that. I can be just like that. If you love what you see, you can be that. So, I heard something today in a podcast I was listening to that I thought was very poignant. They said, when you see someone doing something that you don't like, or you don't, something unpleasant, someone's being mean, someone's a poor person on the street, anything that you're seeing that you would have a judgment about, that rather than judging them, you would just look at them and say, oh, there I go again. I loved this. There I go again, being a bum on the street. I mean, we are all connected that much. Well, there I go again, being an abusive partner, whatever it is you see, recognize it as the wholeness of us, all of us. By that same token, when you see someone filled with love, you can be that, right? How often do those of us who are not in relationships, you see a loving couple, what do you feel? Do you feel a little resentful or jealous or sad? All those feelings that come up, they're so natural. We all get them. But if we want to turn it around, we can work on seeing in that moment, oh, there I go, being in love again. Same thing. Oh, you see someone famous up on the stage, there I go, being on the stage famous again. A rich person, there I go, being rich and fancy. All of those things, we can try them on and understand that that is all us. And as we develop our acceptance of that, it will lift us so much. So that is why I'm doing this way. I don't need to apologize for gaps. I have no requirement to be recording every single day. I never even thought, that wasn't something I applied to myself, but I do see people doing that, putting out recordings every day. It's not how I'm doing it. What I'm doing is being human, and I am awakening ever deeper, and I am putting my baby steps out to be seen, in hopes that other people will start taking their baby steps. Or if they're already taking baby steps, they'll start riding a bike, or they'll start driving a car, and pretty soon they're going to be flying a plane spiritually. Anyway, so the other thing I wanted to talk briefly about, these are very special times. Everything that I get intuitively, everything that I am told, and everything that I've been shown through other people's teachings. Everything is pointing to this being a very significant time on the planet for major growth and awakening. Exactly what I'm doing right now through these recordings, through the great unfolding, is a product of this moment in time when support and energy and vibrance is flooding in to assist us with this massive awakening to who we really are. And in that, I have said before, there are a lot of people that are channeling and more and more all the time. And I believe it's because the veil is thinner. It's easier to connect, just like me and my pendulum. And I said before, I started doing a pendulum, and look, my beautiful pendulum. I don't always do it. I don't do it for every little thing. And if I were to do it too much, I would be told to stop it. And sometimes I ask questions and get answers spelled out. But it's hard because I'm learning that, one of the things about being a channel is, and why people are used as channels, is because if you're in the etheric, you may not speak the English language. And I don't just mean speak another language, but I mean speak intelligibly. On the other side, it's all thought. There are no words, it's all thought. We made up the words. So I came to realize that when people are channeling, they're getting the impressions, and what they're good at and why they're a channel is because they're good at interpreting it into language that human beings will understand. Well, with my pendulum, when I'm asking them to spell, I'm asking a lot. I'm a little wheezy today. So I get frustrated because I'm like, they're speaking in acronyms, and they're not using proper language. Well, that's because they don't speak proper language, and so they're doing their best, and I have to use I have to interpret that. But what I also started to realize is, why am I asking questions out loud? So my newest thing, I just started this the other day like an idiot. Like, I don't know why I never thought about it before. I gotta blow my nose. I'm getting some kind of allergens bothering me. Anyway, this has been a very, and it's also because I'm in a room I've had to keep the cats here in my creative room, and it's not been ideal. Anyway, now I lost my train of thought. What was I saying about my asking in silence? I realized, well, when you're on the other side, when you're not in a human body, all the near-death experiences they talk about, they didn't say anything. You just know, you just think a question and it's answered. And I thought, well, what am I doing? So I started doing my pendulum silently, and I ask the questions, and I'm like, they know what I'm thinking. And I'll be damned, but it didn't work. It works, it's funny. Then it's funnier to watch because I'm just sitting here. If you were to watch me, I'm just sitting here and I'm holding this pendulum in the way that I hold my pendulum, and I'm just watching it. But if you were watching me, you would hear nothing, but you would just see it sometimes go one way, sometimes come to the middle and shimmer a little bit, sometimes go the other way, sometimes a big swing. It's really funny. It's like I'm having a conversation. With the pendulum, but not really. But anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. And what I'm doing is, when I first started doing these recordings, I was coming from one place. As I've been on this journey, just from, my morning practice and doing my toning, things keep changing, and I keep waking up to new ideas and new thoughts. And so some of the things that I've said, I might change, like how I initially was doing my toning changed. And I said, I'm going to do a chapter for my book on how to do this chakra toning. But the way I've been chakra toning has changed. It morphs. So in a way, that would be premature to have done before. I do it differently now. I used to stand up and I used to do a lot of hand motions, and then they wanted me to sit down. I was like, okay, I'll sit down. I really wanted to stand and move around, but then I sat down and I realized, it's more powerful for me when I'm sitting down, but I may eventually get to a point where I want to start moving again. Well, I got to remember all of those stages, because if someone has never done it before, then they may want to explore doing it standing up, and they may want to explore sitting down and see where they feel. The same as with the pendulum. I want people to avail themselves of whatever tool will help them connect with their higher wisdom. And this is a time when you can do that, really can do that. And as I do it, and as I do my morning routine, I get closer and closer in the moment to knowing the next right thing, and to being more consciously aware moment by moment of my greater self, my deeper self, my bigger self, my soul, and my connection to all that is, and my recognition of this body and this role as just a transitory thing. And I think there's so much more I would love to say, but I'm out of time. It's kind of lucky I eked this one out. Anyway, so there will be more, and I have so much in my heart and so much in my mind and so many things that have been gelling that I want to talk to, but I'm going to have to take them when they come. But for now, hopefully, if you've watched this, hopefully it was helpful for you, interesting maybe. If you liked it, please like and follow my YouTube channel and my Facebook page. It matters a lot. And that is The Great Unfolding on YouTube, and The Great Unfolding on Facebook. And you can also certainly go to my webpage. I have thegreatunfolding.com, which I have not fleshed out yet, but eventually, by the time you see this, it might be. And but I also have a lindasueosborne.com. Also, not necessarily super up to date right now, but in any case, all of those things would be greatly appreciated as I attempt to expand outward. And yet I'm not attached, because I also feel pretty sure that whoever, if this information would be helpful to anyone, they will find it. So my goal is not to have a massive online presence, but rather to be seen enough that the right individuals that need to hear what I'm saying will find it. I hope that was clear. Anyway, I'm filled with love right now.